Hello, I'm Dustin, and in this video we will be covering the differences between the current 2022 February 27th version of the Passive Portfolio Tracker and the new 2023 January 15th version of the tracker. Here on the bottom we have the old February 27th version. This is also the version G of that. Over the year, Nora and I have made some minor changes, little bug fixes and typo corrections that were not warranting a full release, and so we'll add a letter to the end, an A, B, C, and we were up to version G of those minor changes. Most people won't even notice that they're there, and it really doesn't matter if you have a 2027 with no letter or you have a different letter than G. The changes are very minor and not enough to warrant making a brand new version. Here on the new version, we are starting off with no letters. First thing to look at here on the README page, as we scroll down, we have all the information about each tab and a little description of what each tab does. And at the bottom of the old version, we have the different versions and what changed from the previous version to the current version. On the new spreadsheet, at the bottom, we do not have the version information. We have a link that goes to a new versions tab. Here on the new versions tab, we have all that version information showing the differences from the February 27th version to the new January 15 version. At the top, you can easily click this link and go back to the README tab. Here at the top of the README tab, we still have the key code, color information, and contact information. Next, we'll be discussing the table of contents page. On the old version and the new version, these pages are very similar. They just change by the number of tabs we've added and moved around. These pages are mostly useful for people working in a laptop or something with a smaller screen, since it's hard to see all the tabs across your screen. So you can just come to this table of contents page and click on any one of these links to link to the page you are trying to get to. Next, we will go to the dashboard tab of the old version, the February 27 version. We call this the dashboard tab, is all your key performance indicators. On the new version, we have actually moved this. It is no longer the dashboard tab. It is the KPIs tab, the Key Performance Indicators tab. What's on these tabs are very similar, no major changes, just an organizational change in the spreadsheet. It's called the KPI tab now, and it is no longer the Dashboard tab. Next, we will go to the Graphs 1 tab in the old version, which is now the new Dashboard tab in the new version. The reason we renamed this is this tab here at the top, we have these two tables. One is your summary of investments. It tells you how many deals you've done, how many current deals you have, how many lifetime deals you have, how many deals have sold. It tells you a lot of information here at the top. And here on the other side, it gives you another table that has your summary of deals for the last 10 years. So this is very useful information, much more dashboard type information about your total portfolio. And as you scroll down, we have different graphs here. You can click on these to link to the specific graph you would like to link to. Or on this side, we have charts that you can link to, pie charts. So you can scroll down and see we've got the cash flow for the last 5 years, and the same thing down here on the bottom. This was called Graphs 1, has the same tables at the top and the same charts as you scroll down. Next, we will be covering the Properties tab. On the new version, we have broken this up into two separate tabs. The Properties tab has all of your textual information about the property, and the Purchases tab has all your financial information about the property. The reason we broke this tab into two is the information was getting so long, it was very difficult to look at on smaller screens, like laptops. By breaking it into two tabs, the data is much easier to see and understand. Here on the first tab, you'll see we have the property name, partnership name, street address, city, state, zip code. And then we have the number of units, the year built, lead contact information, lead phone number. We have added a new column for the lead's address or the LLC's address, so you can put in an address to get a hold of the lead if you'd like to send them a Christmas card or something. Lead's deal number, lead's override, and some notes if you have any notes you would like to add about this. Also note here at the beginning, some of the deals are highlighted in blue. Blue highlighting indicates this was the first deal closed of that calendar year. So this bottom one was the very first deal closed in 2022. The top one, this was the first year closed in 2014. As we come up here, this was the first deal closed in 2021, and then we did 2 other deals in 2021 for a total of 3 deals in 2021. As we move to the next tab, the Purchases tab, this data also has the blue highlighting like the first tab. And then we have the purchase date, MFQA information, the loan to value, number of investors, key principal. We tried to move this data across from here. If you split this first spreadsheet in half, this side and then to this side, it kind of lines up pretty well. And then we also recalculate all of your information here at the back. One important thing to notice on this one is we have changed the cash call section is no longer strictly for cash calls. It is now for capital events. So you put the date of the event in here. If you put a positive number, that is a cash call where you are injecting extra capital back into the deal. And if you put a negative number in this column, that is a return of capital. The white paper discusses return of capital. If a lead overcapitalized and they're paying investors back some money, we track that right here. And then also the third column is strictly for cash calls, and that is the total amount that the lead raised from all investors and not just you. Again, here at the end, we have this section for putting in notes about the property. And that is all of the changes for the new properties and purchases tab. Here on the quarterly's distribution tab, there have been minimal changes. The only real change we've made is on the new version, it is capital event and not just cash call. So we'll mark the date of any capital events that you have, cash call or return of capital. Everything else is pretty much the same. Please note that you can click this box here and see the LLC or the entity name. If you uncheck this box, it shows the property name. That's just useful when you're putting in your distributions because they usually come on a check in the name of the entity and not necessarily on the name of the property. We have moved over the blue highlighting to let you know what was the first property purchased in a year, and everything else is pretty much the same. Next, we'll go to the quarterly's percent tab. No changes on this tab from the previous versions. So you can come through and look at your data. We do have the blue highlighting. That is a new change in capital event versus cash call. Everything else, the majority of this tab is the same. Your data moves across. There is nothing to copy as you're going between versions. Next, we'll be looking at the loans tab. On the loans tab, there is just a couple changes. Most notably, we have changed cash call to capital event. So we're tracking the capital event and not just strictly a cash call. We've also added debt service calculations. We went ahead and used your loan amount, your interest rate, your amortization. We've used all that to calculate out what your interest rate is, your principal, and your total debt service so that you have an estimation of what we think your debt service should be in case you need to use that somewhere else in the spreadsheet. We have also added what your total cash on cash return on an investment is for your refinances. Next, we'll be going over differences of the sales tabs. On the old version, the new version, we've added a date column for payment number 2. The reason we did that is people were running into situations where payment number 1 was in one calendar year and payment number 2 was in a separate calendar year, and we weren't tracking it for taxes correctly. It was nice to have a date on there so we know which calendar year to add it to when we're graphing out distributions and stuff like that. Another thing to take note of is the 167,400 here. As we click on that, you'll notice that it is a formula in that cell. And as we migrated our data, when you watch the data migration, it shows you the reason we do paste formulas instead of paste values so that we copy that formula across. And this is in a situation where the lead sent out 2 separate checks along with that initial distribution. One check for the return of investment of $100,000 and another check of $67,400 for the profit. Just a nice way to track stuff and pay attention to what you've got. Here on the back end, you will see that we also changed and added a few more columns to track the returns based on the different proceeds, payment number 1 versus payment number 2. Next, we'll be covering the changes on the returns tab. Here on the returns tab, we have changed cash call to capital event. We've also added the blue highlighting for the first property purchased in each year. Here at the top, across here, we've added a little more information. We have the current properties, the sold properties, and then the total lifetime. This is every property that you have purchased, even sold and current properties together. Here you'll see that we have 12 current properties, 8 sold properties, and 20 total properties. Now as you scroll across here, you'll notice all the percentage information, and we have weighted all of the numbers up here at the top so that your returns are more realistic. The situation we were running into before was if you had a $25,000 investment that gave you a 22% return, and a $100,000 for investment that gave you 11% return, you couldn't just add those together and divide by 2. So we had to weight these better. The other new column that's added is an annualized quarterly cash on cash. This shows what the current annualized cash on cash return is for your entire portfolio. Here at the bottom, we have it in each individual property, and here at the top, it's the total portfolio, all of your sold deals, and the lifetime of all of your deals. Moving over, we still have our K1 sections. This first K1 is going to be the current calendar year, and the next one is going to be the previous calendar year. This will go through and add it through all of your distributions, refis, sales, capital events, and try to add them up into a number that should come close to matching your K1. This is not a 100% guarantee to match your K1, but gives you an idea of what you should be expecting on your K1. And you can also go back and compare it to the previous year, or you can change the year that you want to compare it to see how things are different. Next, the MFQA tab. We have moved the order and position in the new spreadsheet, but the data on this tab has not changed. Next, we'll be going over changes from your Financials tab. Here are the old Financials tab on the bottom, the new Financials tab on the top. For the most part, the information hasn't changed too much. We have changed formatting so that we show negative information as red, so that your loan balance and your debt service are in red. Also, as you look over here, your total expenses and other information that are calculated out for you as you scroll down are highlighted in red. The main new change on here is your balance sheet, your cash in the bank. Previously, we had 3 columns for you to put information in, and they were all 3 positive amounts. So they added together to become the total amount of cash you had in the bank. On the new one, we have 2 columns for positive dollar amounts, cash in the bank, and 1 for liabilities. If you know the property has a debt or something that's going to be paid out soon, you can put that in here. Everything else in this beginning section has stayed the same. As you scroll down, there's more formatting and cleaning up, but we won't go into those major details in this version. One other thing to note is you can go to the Loans tab, and we have calculated out debt service, so you can use the debt service that we've calculated on the Loans tab, or you can use debt service information that has been provided by the league. Next, on the Graphs 2 tab, which has been renamed and moved to the Financials Graphs tab in the new spreadsheet, there are no changes in the spreadsheet other than the colors have changed so that they line up with the case study presentation template. So you can now just screen grab this data if you would like to use this in a case study presentation. Don't forget to go and update all of your data and adjust the pivot tables. That information is covered in the Migrating Your Data video. Here on the Reports tab, there are no changes. Here on the Links tab, there are no changes from the old version to the new version. The most important thing here is to just make sure that you are not putting in actual passwords. You are using a hint to what your password is when you're putting in the portal site. These other passwords here might need to have the actual password if the lead sends you a link to a video presentation and you need to use a very specific password that is not a normal password of yours. You might want to put that password here. But mostly try to use a hint to remind you what that password is instead of using an actual password so that it can't be hacked. If somebody ever got a hold of this spreadsheet, you don't want someone to be able to use your password and log into your portal and make changes to your information. Here on the PFS Schedule of Real Estate Owned, or Personal Financial Statement Schedule of Real Estate Owned, there are no changes between the 2 versions. There are no changes from the old version to the new version of the 2-day net worth tool. Here on the FAQ tab, we have a few new questions, but for the most part, this tab is unchanged from one version to the next. And that concludes a brief overview of the differences between the 2022 February 27th version and the new 2023 January 15th version of the Passive Portfolio Tracker. If you have any questions, please email them to tracker@sandust.com, and Nora or myself will get a hold of you and answer your question as best we can. We look forward to hearing from you.